In the spring of 1908, under a sky bleached pale by the Nevada sun, a railway surveyor made a discovery that would haunt the desert for generations. He had been sent to map potential expansion routes just outside the rapidly growing railroad town of Las Vegas. The city was young then, barely 3 years old, born from a land auction that promised opportunity to anyone brave enough to chase it. The desert stretched endlessly around him, dry, silent, unforgiving. But what he found that day didn't belong to the desert. Hidden behind a cluster of twisted Joshua trees was a burial ground. At first glance it seemed small, unremarkable. But as he stepped closer, something felt wrong. The graves were too perfect. There were exactly 89 of them, each mound of dirt measured with precision, each grave placed exactly 6 feet apart, arranged in a grid so exact it looked almost engineered. There were no names, no crosses, no signs of religion, family, or grief. Only silence, and a feeling that whatever happened here was planned. The surveyor filed his report, but instead of sparking an investigation, it was quietly sealed away. For decades, no one spoke openly about the cemetery. Railroad tracks were rerouted to avoid it. Locals whispered about it, but never lingered on the subject. And over time, the truth faded into something resembling myth. They called it Henderson's Harvest. But the real story didn't begin in 1908. It began 3 years earlier, in 1905, when Las Vegas was born. In May of 1905, thousands gathered for a land auction that would transform a simple railroad stop into a booming frontier town. Dreamers arrived from everywhere, California, Utah, Arizona, each carrying hope in one hand and desperation in the other. Among them was a man named Jeremiah Henderson. He was 42 years old, a former cattle rancher from Utah, a man who had lost everything. Jeremiah arrived in Las Vegas months after the auction had ended. By then, the best land was already gone. All he had left was his family and $63. His wife, Sarah, stood by him, a quiet, devout woman with a reputation for kindness. Their children, Mary, Samuel, and Rebecca, were too young to fully understand how close their family was to collapse. But they felt it, in the way their parents spoke in hushed tones at night, in the way meals became smaller, in the way hope began to thin. With no chance of buying valuable land, Jeremiah did what he could. He claimed a patch of desert miles outside the town and built a small way station. Travelers passed through constantly, railroad workers, merchants, drifters, and men with secrets. Jeremiah fed them, sheltered them, listened to their stories, and slowly something inside him began to change.
Las Vegas in 1905 was not a place of rules. It was a place of opportunity, and men who succeeded there weren't always the most honest. They were the most willing. The turning point came on a hot September night. A man arrived at the Henderson homestead just after sunset. He called himself Thomas Edwards. He carried money and fear. Over dinner, Edwards revealed the truth. He was running. From the law, from his past, from a life he could never return to. And he had heard rumors of places where a man could disappear. "I'll pay," Edwards said quietly, placing a thick roll of bills on the table, "whatever it takes." $500. It was more money than the Henderson family had seen in years, enough to change everything. That night, as Edward slept in the guest cabin, Jeremiah made a decision, not out of rage, not out of desperation, but with calm, calculated intent. He entered the cabin quietly and suffocated the man in his sleep. There was no struggle, no noise, just silence. Jeremiah buried the body behind his homestead, measured the grave carefully, marked it with a small stone. Number 1. The next morning, he told his family that Edwards had left early. No one questioned it, at least not out loud. But something had changed, and it wasn't just their financial situation. Jeremiah felt no guilt, no remorse, only clarity. He had discovered something, a solution, a way to turn desperation into power. Within weeks, he began spreading rumors, quietly, carefully, through saloons and boarding houses. If you needed to disappear, if you had money, there was a place outside Las Vegas that could help. Men started arriving, one by one, each with a past they wanted to escape, each carrying cash, each trusting the wrong man, and each never leaving. The graves multiplied, 2, 5, 10, each one placed with the same precision, each one part of a growing system. Jeremiah wasn't killing randomly. He was selecting, evaluating, calculating risk. Men without families, men already running, men no one would look for. To him, they weren't victims, they were opportunities. But inside the house, the truth couldn't stay buried forever. Sarah began to notice the sudden wealth, the missing travelers, the silence. Then one night she found his journal, hidden beneath the floorboards, leather-bound, carefully written, page after page of names, descriptions, amounts of money taken, and burial locations. 7 murders, documented like business transactions. When she confronted him, she expected denial, fear, something human. Instead, Jeremiah explained. "They're already lost," he said calmly. "They can't go back. I'm giving them peace and giving us a future." That was the moment Sarah realized. The man she married was gone. But she stayed, not because she agreed, but because she was afraid. And she wasn't the only one who knew. Samuel, their 12-year-old son, had been watching, listening, counting. He remembered every face, every traveler who arrived and never left. He began to understand, slowly, painfully. His father wasn't helping people disappear. He was killing them. By 1906, the operation had grown. Word spread across territories. Men traveled from distant states, drawn by whispers of a place where past lives could vanish. But nothing vanished, except them. The graves reached 20, 30, 50, and still Jeremiah wasn't satisfied. He had a goal, 89, enough money to buy prime land in Las Vegas, enough to become respectable, untouchable. But the more he killed, the more unstable he became. He grew paranoid, cold, detached, and then he began seeing his own family as a threat. Samuel heard it first, half-whispered conversations, plans, calculations. Once the work was done, no witnesses could remain. That included Sarah and the children.
The realization broke something inside Samuel. He was just a boy, but he understood one thing clearly. If he did nothing, they would all die, and more would follow. So he made a decision, the hardest decision of his life. One night in October 1907, Samuel waited until his father and his accomplices left the homestead. Then he took the journals, saddled a horse, and rode into the darkness. The journey to Las Vegas took 4 hours, through cold desert winds, through fear that never left his chest. He rode knowing one truth: he was about to destroy his family, to save others. When he reached town, he went straight to the marshal and told them everything.
At first, they didn't believe him. But the journals, the details, the precision, it was too real. By dawn, a search party was assembled, armed, prepared. They rode to the Henderson homestead. What they found confirmed the nightmare. Sarah, bound, beaten, barely alive. The children hiding in terror. And behind the house, the graves. 87 bodies, laid out in perfect order. The final confrontation happened at the burial site. Jeremiah and his men were caught trying to destroy evidence. The gunfight was short, violent. 2 men died. Jeremiah was captured. As he lay wounded, he showed no remorse, only frustration. His plan was unfinished. The trial in 1908 shocked the nation. 87 confirmed murders, systematic, documented. Samuel testified against his own father. His voice steady, but his eyes told a different story. Jeremiah was sentenced to death and executed months later. His final words: "I did what I had to do." No apology, no regret, just justification. The land where the graves were found was left untouched for years. People avoided it, feared it. Even as Las Vegas grew into a city of lights and fortune, that darkness remained buried beneath its foundation. And the boy who stopped it all? Samuel Henderson never spoke publicly again. But history remembers him, not as the son of a killer, but as the one who ended it. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stand against your own blood and choose what's right.